They are the heroes of the hottest sport in America, household names who earn their living at mind-boggling speed. They are backed by men, mechanical masterminds, many of whom change uniforms in the off-season, all of whom have built, tested, and tuned these 3,400-pound war machines, the cars that carry the stars, who are about to embark on a 32-race quest for the biggest prize in American motorsports, the '97 NASCAR Winston Cup Championship. Hello, everyone. I'm Dave Despain. Welcome to Daytona International Speedway in the final hours before the Daytona 500, the final hours before they go green. We're going to take a look at the 1997 season. Got a fairly heavy-hitting lineup of guests. We're going to have Labonte, Gordon, Earnhardt, McReynolds all sitting here. Got the ESPN team down in the garage area to get everybody else that matters. Bill Weber will be hanging out with the defending Daytona 500 champion, DJ Dale Jarrett. And Benny Parsons, he's running loose on the ground somewhere here at the birthplace of speed with a go-anywhere credential and his very own microphone.
I got my credential, I got my microphone, and folks, I've got a pretty interesting list of guys to talk about in the next hour. And I tell you one thing, I'm ready for this year's Daytona 500 to go green. We've spent 42 hours on the air preparing for this year's Daytona 500. About one more hour, and I think we'll say everything that is to be said. And Dave, I think I'll go to work. You ought to try it sometime.
Ooh, that hurt. Come on, Parsons. I interview race drivers for a living. That's not work. That's a dream come true. Who do I want to interview first? I want to start at the top.
The checkered flag comes out, and Terry Labonte has become the 1996 NASCAR Winston Cup champion.
The top, of course, is the Winston Cup champion. What impressed you most about Terry Labonte's 1996 season? Maybe the fact that the title came 12 years after his '84 crown, the longest gap between titles in the history of the sport. Or maybe it was the fact that en route to the big prize, he broke Richard Petty's record for consecutive Winston Cup starts, making Labonte the Iron Man in one of racing's toughest divisions. Or perhaps it was the competition that caught your eye. Dale Earnhardt, Dale Jarrett, 10-race winner Jeff Gordon all fell victim to Labonte's relentless consistency last year. And now consider this. In an off-season marked by endless shuffles of Winston Cup personnel, not a single member of Labonte's Hendrick Motorsports crew went anywhere. In other words, there are lots of reasons to believe this scene could be repeated at the end of the '97 season. And now here to tell us exactly how he's going to repeat that '96 success is the champ, Terry Labonte. Congratulations.
Thank you.
A big accomplishment in this offseason to keep all your people together. How confident are you that this team can repeat?
Well, I don't know. I think we're pretty confident. I think we've got a great team. We've got all the same people back in our Kellogg Chevy we had last year. And I don't know. You know, the competition is awful tough. We've just got to go out and do the best we can.
I've got to ask you in that regard about your team, the difficult question. I think by now most of America has learned that Rick is fighting leukemia, your car owner, Rick Hendrick. The question to you, I think, is how do you and Gary DeHart keep everybody focused on the issue of success in '97 and not let that become a distraction? What are you doing to keep things focused?
Well, I think that, you know, that's going to be very important. I think Gary and I are going to have to work a little bit harder in the past as far as trying to keep everything together on our team instead of having Rick do it for us, you know. And I think Gary and I are going to have to step up and probably try to become a little bit more involved, maybe some different things that maybe we didn't do in the past, just because we can't depend on Rick doing it for us. Not that he can't do it or wouldn't do it, but we just don't want to bother him with probably some things that we might be able to handle ourselves.
Does that come naturally for you in your relationships with your teams over the years? Are you a motivator, a coach, a pep talker? You don't strike me as that kind of guy.
Well, you know, you have to be sometimes, because I think when the driver is frustrated or down in the dumps, it kind of spreads throughout the team. And if he's pretty upbeat about things and goes around and pats everybody in the back, then that goes a long way too. So, you know, that's something that you've got to do.
Let me get a little more specific about strategy. '95, your first year with the team, you guys really focused on the tracks where you thought you could do well, get a quick win. You got 3.
Right.
Second year, '96, you focused on the tracks where you had not done well before, Dover, for example, and you did great there. And that paid off with the championship. So now what's left? I mean, have you got all the bases covered so you can just sit there and collect on that experience? What's the strategy?
You know, I don't know. I think the strategy this year is probably the same as it was last year. We've got to be consistent, and that's what we worked on last year. We've got to really concentrate on trying to run as well as we can, of course, every place we go, but we've got to be consistent. And there's a couple of tracks right now that we need to work on. The new tracks that we're going to that nobody has been to, we need to put some effort into those and go out there and try to get a good run at the new speedways. There's a couple of racetracks that we still struggle at a little bit that we need to work on.
You guys did a great job last year. We wish you success again in '97. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
I'll tell you what, Benny Parsons is jumping up and down, just dying to talk to the other half of this team. Benny's in the garage area. Go for it, buddy.
And Dave, that would be Gary Dehart. Gary, last year the car was very consistent. Is that what you're going to try to do this year?
Benny, we're going to try to be more consistent this year. We failed a few times last year, you know, doing some things we wanted to do, and as long as everything mechanically holds up pretty good, motors, transmissions, and rear ends and stuff like that, you know, we're going to try to be as consistent as we can be. You know, being consistent, what won the championship last year.
That's exactly right. Gary, I mean, the growth of the sport is absolutely incredible, and some teams out there are throwing unbelievable money at crew members. But yet you're back with the same crew you had last year. How do you keep them all together?
You know, I don't know. I'm so damn hard to get along with. You can't blame a man for wanting to better himself, but you know, you got to be careful sometimes jumping around from job to job. You jump yourself out of business after a while. But you know, me, I've only had 4 jobs in my life, you know, so I'm here to stay. I'm going to retire here.
Thank you, Benny. From a team that stayed intact and won the championship, we'll talk later about new teams, the reorganization of arguably the most famous team in the business, and when we come back, last year's new team that won the Daytona 500. Dale Jarrett is next on Before They Go Green.
For the lead, Jarrett goes to the inside in the second corner and comes out with the lead.
Welcome back to the 1997 NASCAR Winston Cup Before They Go Green. With all the talk of new teams this year, it is instructive, I think, to go back and look at the team that was brand new here a year ago. They had a remarkable 1996 season. Here's Bill Weber.
All winter long, it's like, man, you had such a great 1996. What are you going to do for an encore? Go win those races again and some more.
The Ford Quality Care Crew hopes to start the 97 season with the same explosive flash that ignited the 96 season, a win in the Daytona 500. But while Dale Jarrett conquered the big races, he stumbled on the short tracks. No wins and 3rd overall in short track points, behind Jeff Gordon and Terry Labonte.
That's an area that myself as a driver, I want to work on. There's something there, a reason that we haven't won. Came close to winning last year. I thought we should have won at Richmond the first race. A couple of other opportunities to where we finished in the top 3. We just didn't get it done to get in victory lane. But that is an area that we feel like we kind of lost the championship, that if we would have been a little better there, we could have been right there, a little closer at Atlanta.
At Wilkesboro, we were okay. Martinsville, we really stunk. So we didn't test there last year. This year, we're going to go test at Martinsville. We might use 2 tests at Martinsville, but, you know, we want to improve there.
Jarrett's 96 season will be remembered for his starring role in the glamour events, Daytona, Charlotte, and Indy, plus a valuable victory at Ford's front door in Detroit, a run at the Winston Million, a win in the Busch Clash, and nearly $3 million in earnings. A season full of memories and milestones. But the 88 bunch finished 89 points behind Labonte.
Would you trade that season for Terry Labonte's season?
Yeah, I would. The championship's what it's all about, and you can win all the races that you want to, how important they are. I would trade it for a championship. That's my goal, is to be on that stage in New York and knowing that my team and myself put forth a good enough effort for an entire season to beat everybody.
And this year, everybody would include beating Larry McReynolds, now teamed with Dale Earnhardt.
I miss him. You know, he's a sharp guy. Been around a long time, and he's a great crew chief, and he's a great leader. You know, his skills in organizing people and that part of the leadership part, you know, is the part that I miss the most.
Certainly it's going to be a benefit to Richard Childress Racing and Dale Earnhardt, but I feel like that we have the people and the organization that is good enough that one person isn't going to cause us a breakdown.
I guess I liked him well enough that I didn't want to see him miss out on an opportunity like that. And I really probably will kick myself from now on, but at the same time, I looked at Larry and I knew if it was my son and it was an opportunity, and if he didn't do it, he'd be kicking himself.
Jarrett, Parrott, and Yates all have a new multi-year agreement, cementing a potent combination. But like true champions, they plan to approach the long season one race at a time. And of course, you know what the next race is.
All right, thank you, Bill. 2 years ago here at Daytona, remember Dale Jarrett moving over from the Interstate Battery Chevy to the Robert Yates team? Last year they formed a new organization, and look at the success they've had. Later on, we're going to look at all the new teams lining up for action in 1997. And when we come back, the team of Rusty Wallace and Robin Pemberton. Stay with us. It was one of the most widely reported stories of the preseason Winston Cup Media Tour. Wallace confident as usual, or even more confident than usual. The former Winston Cup champ confessed he said all this before, and he looked us right in the eye and convinced us that this really is his best shot ever at the title. He took the big prize in '89 with a team in the process of falling apart. This bunch, in contrast, is a study in stability. No one left during the off-season. The team found enough restrictor plate horsepower to rank among the fastest in pre-Daytona testing. He always wins a bunch of races. Rusty says he feels this is his year to win a lot more than that. And with that, let's find out how that optimism is holding up on the eve of the 500. Benny Parsons is with Rusty Wallace.
Rusty, you guys are pumped up. Where does all this optimism come from?
Well, the biggest reason we're pumped up is because of the team. We have no turnover. And as many teams as I've been with, or many team members that I've went through, when I started in 1997 and saw Mike Agee stable, saw Robin Pemberton stable, saw every crew member happy, and looked at all the wins we had last year, 6 wins, the inaugural win of Japan, it just became evident to me that we haven't had any turnover. We learned a lot last year, and there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic. We have won more races than any team in the 90s. 10 and 8 and stuff like that. But you look at the championship, they always look at that. Don't even look at the wins. I'm going to change that this year. They're all focused. I'm probably focused more than I've ever been in my life because I'm just really hungry. I really want to get it.
Evaluate the competition in 1997. Who do you think the guys you want to have to beat week in and week out after the championship?
Naturally, I should be saying the 5 car, and I should be saying the 24 and the 88. I should be saying that, and I'm going to say that. Those are 3 real big competitors. And Earnhardt hasn't run good last year, and he ran decent the year before, but this year he's kind of feeling like I am. It's amazing how, I remember back in 1992, him and I sat in the very, very back of the room at the Waldorf Astoria, 14th and 15th to the points or something. And he's going nuts because he couldn't figure out how he ran that bad that year. Me too. We were so determined in 1993, we won everything. Between him and I, we just won them all. He won the championship, and I finished second right on his hind tail. It feels that way again. And he's got McReynolds over there now. And I talk to him all the time. He's hungry. He's going 2-3, 2-3, and I'm going, you know, I think it's going to be that way because there's just that much drive to want to win it again. He wants the 8th one, and I want my 2nd one.
Let's talk a little bit about the growth of the sport. Okay. I mean, you started your first races in 1980. I guess you became a regular in, what, 84, 85?
Regular 1984 is my first year.
And, I mean, you were making a living then.
Mm-hmm.
But did you ever dream that you could make the kind of living that you're making now driving a race car?
Well, I'm real fortunate, you know. I never thought the sport would do what it did. I didn't think it would grow as fast as it did. I didn't think there'll be near as many fans attending the racetracks like there are right now. And I learned a lot through the whole time. I guess the most important thing I learned was the fans, because I always thought it was just, hey, you know, I got to win this race, and I don't have time to do this and time to do that. But when you finally sit back and realize the fans are the ones that put the money in the stands, those are the ones that support you, and those are the ones that when you go out there for driver's introduction, if nobody stands up and gives you a cheer, you feel like crap. So they're up there pumping you up, and so the fans are number one. They're number one to me, but they also got to understand we got a job to do at the racetrack. Autograph sessions and stuff like that are need to be done outside the garage area, and we have problems nowadays with trying to concentrate in the cars while there's stuff going inside. But trust me, I'm trying to do all I can for them because they're number one in our book.
Is that the downside of all the growth of sport? There's just too many fans wanting a piece of it?
No. The downside of the sport is too much going on, not enough time at home. Spreading too much time away from the shop, too much time away from my house with the family, because I'm always in the sky, always flying, going somewhere, doing something for a sponsor. But if you don't have the sponsors, you don't have either. So it's a catch-22, and whoever manages the best is going to run the best and be the most successful. And I think I'm doing a pretty damn good job managing, to tell you the truth.
All right, Benny, thank you. One of the reasons for all that optimism in the Wallace camp is this guy, Robin Pemberton. You've cut the long-term deal. You're not going anywhere. But one of the big issues in this offseason, one of the things everybody's talking about is crew chief shuffling, personnel shuffling, and all the money that the owners are allegedly throwing at you crew chiefs. Do you want to reveal to us to the penny how much you're making?
No, not at all.
I figured that.
We'll talk about that.
Is there any truth in all of that? Is the price of a championship crew chief actually skyrocketing?
Yeah, it's gone up a lot for crew chiefs and all the crew members. You know, when you get new teams coming in there and they promise their sponsors that you know, they can win races, sit on poles, and contend for a championship, the key ingredients are, you know, they already have a driver. They've sold the driver. They need to get a crew chief and all the right people to work on the car. So, you know, to get a ready-made team or team, you know, up and running in a hurry, you have to go get experience. And when people are locked in or have good jobs and enjoying what they're doing, you know, all the jobs are the same. So it's just the price that has to go up to get those people.
And it's money well spent. With the escalation on the other side, the value of a sponsorship, the value of the championship, it just follows that some of that should trickle down, doesn't it?
Yeah, oh yeah, by far.
Yeah. Let me ask you about logistics, because that's a big part of what you guys do. You're going to take 2 races in North Wilkesboro, for example, and replace them with Loudon up in that corner of the country and Texas way out west. The schedule expands by 1. How big an issue is that for you? How difficult is it to deal with?
Well, it's not just running another race. I mean, you lose a day traveling going, a day traveling coming home. And, you know, we were kind of spoiled with Wilkesboro. It's 35 minutes from my house. You get up and ride your motorcycle up there in the morning and come home at night. You know, you have a good time. And it's, you know, those were 3 or 4 nights that the road crew spent at home with their families. And that's getting to be more of an issue nowadays than anything. And so now you've taken, you know, those 8 days that we would spend at Wilkesboro, you know, going there twice, and we're all over the country, and you've taken eight family days away from yourself.
I don't want to let you out of here without talking about your team a little bit. Rusty's optimism justified? Are you guys championship contenders? You're going to win this thing this year?
I think we're contenders, and I'm not going to say we're going to win it, but, you know, we've started working on our Speedway programs last year in August, and we had cars in the wind tunnel in September and October, and our cars are prepared for the first, you know, 5 or 6 races of the year, and we're just optimistic. You know, we've got all the people lined up and smiles on their faces, and that's hard to do.
Rusty Wallace and Robin Pemberton, heck of a team. Next up, the big challenge at Daytona this year. Sort out all of these paint jobs. Who are these people? When we come back, Bill Weber will have a look at all the new teams in 1997. Welcome back. Given the incredible success of Winston Cup racing in the last 4 or 5 years, it is inevitable that people are going to flock to it. Not just fans, but teams, competitors, people who want to cash in on all of this opportunity. There is an abundant lineup of new teams for 1997, and Bill Weber is going to run down not only who they are, but also some of the challenges they will face.
This is going to probably be one of the tightest, toughest years that we've ever seen, and there are going to be a lot of good cars going home, more than last year. There are going to be a lot of growing pains out there this year for some of the teams. You know, I've been through it a long time and failed.
Failure. It is the most feared factor in any sport, to any athlete. In racing, success is measured 1 point at a time. Rick Hendrick knows the gut-wrenching struggle to be successful. 2 of his teams have won the last 2 Winston Cup championships. but his third team hasn't won a race in more than 5 years, 170 races ago. Skill, patience, speed, communication, timing, and just plain luck are all part of the NASCAR equation that determines who wins a race and who watches it. Simple math says you can't cram 50 cars into a 42-car starting field. So the overwhelming challenge for the daring new combinations: click when others cannot, fly where even the successful have failed, especially on Friday.
A lot of teams used to come in and run 3 or 4 races or 8 to 10 races. They about eliminated that because it's so competitive. If you're not there every day, you're going to get behind. There'll be a couple of 3 of these people that'll be able to make it. The rest of them will fall by the wayside. There might be a couple of other teams that are already out there that just are struggling that won't make it through the year or won't make it into 98. So, you know, we've got to be strong enough that we're going to be one of those teams that make it and also be able to win something as we go along.
I think it's going to be tough, you know, and that's one of the toughest things, you know, that to bring a new team along and get it up to a level to where you do have the provisions where if you have a problem, you can still make the races. We're in this thing for the long haul, and we're not going to worry about what happens the first few races or even the first season. You know, we've set goals for our first season, and we set them where I think we can accomplish most of them.
And the first goal will be repeated more than a stale infomercial: make the show. Big names and multi-million-dollar sponsors are going to miss races, and miss a lot of them this season.
I think you'd be lying if you said you don't think about it and you don't make it a concern. But you have to go out and you have to approach things from the standpoint of being the best that you can possibly be when you leave the facility and go to the racetrack and prepare yourself. And that's what Ryan and the guys are doing. We have a complete program all laid out and ready to go. So they're prepared. And obviously, you know, preparation meets opportunity. And I think that when we show up at the racetracks, we'll have our act together and we'll do what we do best. And hopefully we'll go out and we'll be very productive qualifying and get ourselves off to a good start.
Close competition is the goal of racing, and there is no denying the closest competition in recent years has been the race to make the race, where fractions have determined futures and decided fortunes. Qualifying for the Daytona 500 began months ago, probably on a pad of paper in a conference room at the race shop. But even the most extensive preparation and pinpoint planning may not be enough to help the new team.
Are you concerned about making races early in the season?
Concerned, you know, on a heads-up basis, no. You know, going to Daytona, running fast enough, no, I'm not concerned. Going to Richmond, Rockingham, Atlanta, places like that, no, I'm not concerned. I can sit here 100% and tell you no, that we're going to make races and we're going to run good. The thing I'm concerned about is being bit by an outside source that you have no control over. By not having provisionals, you go to Daytona, you get caught up in a 125-mile wreck. You're out, you're going home. You go to Richmond, snows for 2 days, and they start on points. You're out, you're going home. You know, there's a lot of things that can reach up and bite a new team in the beginning that you should be concerned about, but there's no need for me to sit here and dwell on them and worry about them because it's in somebody's hands greater than myself to be able to control that stuff.
From the new teams, we'll return to the team that has set the standard for excellence in Winston Cup competition the last couple of years. Jeff Gordon joins us when we come back.
Jeff Gordon wins the Mountain Dew Southern 500 for 1996.
Pick any of Jeff Gordon's 5 DNFs during the 96 season, and it's easy to say, hey, that's the day he lost his shot at a second straight championship. Pick any of his amazing total of 10 victories from last year, and let those celebratory pictures stand as a reminder. In the past 2 seasons, no driver has won more poles, more races, led more laps and miles, scored more Winston Cup points than this guy. Yes, the consistency of the Rainbow Warriors slipped in 96, but the competition might be wise not to count on that happening again in 97. And Gordon fans, oh, they're more than ready for Jeff's second championship in 3 years. And now look here, through the power of television, or maybe it's the warmth of this guy's smile, we put the Gordon fans back in the stands, we cleared up the weather, and we're here to talk about Jeff and how you're going to win this championship. I guess the first step is don't crash tomorrow and don't blow up at Rockingham, and then you'll be a whole lot better off.
That would be nice.
It'll be a big improvement over
you know,
last year.
that's what it's all about, DNFs. The fewer you get, the better chances you have of winning a championship. And I think that's what we look back on in 1996 is what kept us from winning the championship, and it was just too many DNFs. We got, you know, the race wins. We got the consistency when we are finishing races, but those are the things we need to take control of.
Everybody's going to cut tires, crash, break parts. A lot of people call that luck. Do you subscribe to the luck theory, or are you the guy who believes you make your own luck and you really can control those things?
I think you can control a lot of it. I mean, when you got guys who are only, that only have 2 or 3 DNFs during the whole season, I think there's certain things that you can do. If you have a problem, the team can make up for a lot, or the driver can make up for a lot to communicate back, get those things fixed. Let's take Terry Labonte at Martinsville, for instance. I mean, they had that clutch problem. They got in there, fixed it. That you know, that was that made them up a lot of points that day.
95, you focused on the short tracks. That was your weak point. Scored more points than anybody else, won the championship. You've won restrictor plate races on both tracks. You've won Charlotte. You've won, you know, 3 straight at Dover, 3 straight at Darlington. I mean, where do you step up? What do you have left to improve?
Well, we win
as a driver.
Well, we win another championship. I think where my role keeps stepping up is consistency. Just you know, the only way you can continue to step it up is to be more consistent at each and every racetrack. I mean, I felt like we had that, but you know, it's sometimes winning 10 races, you take too many chances, and you know, I want to win races. I like to win races, so does this whole team. But where we're going to have to step it up is not necessarily shoot our goals to win 10 or more races or win 10 poles or whatever. It's let's just go out there and be consistent each and every weekend. Let's try to win races, but let's do it consistently and not fall out of races.
Real quick, any surprise contenders? Is it the usual guys?
Well, I mean, you got some heavy hitters now and with some good teams. I mean, you know, I think you got Richard Childress now has got Mike Skinner in there, and they're giving him great race cars, and you can't take away what he's been doing in the truck series. I think it's going to take some experience for him to really, you know, step it up, but when you're learning in some of the best equipment, that certainly helps. You know Earnhardt's going to be tough. You know Jarrett's going to be tough. Mark Martin's going to be tough. Terry Labonte is going to be tough and consistent. I can't make predictions because there's too many of them.
The usual suspects. Good luck. This guy's always quick to give a lot of credit to his crew chief. I think we should quickly go to Benny Parsons and the guy who makes Speed Racer run.
Well, Dave, this is ex-modified driver turned crew chief, Jeff Gordon's crew chief, Ray Evernham. 1996, was it a little frustrating?
Yeah, where'd you get that X from? I never officially retired.
Oh, do you still drive modifieds?
Well, I've never officially retired.
But you're doing a pretty good job as a crew chief. 1996, frustrating?
Well, yes and no. We won, you know, of course we won a bunch of races, led the most laps, sat on the most poles. That part of it wasn't frustrating. It was frustrating some of the DNFs that we had that cost us the championship. It would have been a lot more frustrating if it wasn't Terry that won it. You know, it's kind of hard to be too mad, you know, kicking the dog when your teammate and your car owner have still won the championship.
Your car owner, Rick Hendrick, has talked about, has disclosed that he has leukemia. And I know that you guys are awfully close to Rick Hendrick. Is that going to be a hindrance in 1997 as you go for the title?
Well, you know, a lot of people have asked us that, Benny, and we're going to do our very best not to let it be a hindrance. You know, we've got the proper attitude. All Rick wants is the 3rd championship, and we're going to do our very best to get him that. But in reality, you know, you got to stop and take a look at life, and you say, okay, even if it is a hindrance, that's just life. I mean, what's priority? And priority right now is we're concerned about him. We're not going to try and let it be a hindrance, but if it is, so what, as long as we get the man healthy.
Back to 1997, you talked about the DNFs. How do you change those things in 1997?
Well, believe it or not, instead of looking really hard at all the races we won and writing those setups down, we really, really worked hard on what we feel cost us the championship. Not being prepared to come here in February, you know, put us in a bad position, got wrecked, went to Rockingham, burned a piston, went to Loudon, failed the ignition box, Talladega crash. Indy was about the only thing we couldn't control, just basically blew a tire, you know, run over a staple or a piece of debris or whatever happened. You know, the problem at Charlotte, all those things we've really, really kind of redone how we're preparing the car and the things, mileages and whatnot, and the things we're going to take a chance on and not.
Well, Dave, when we go to Atlanta in November, Ray Evernham, Jeff Gordon will be in the mix.
All right, thanks, guys. Jeff and Ray made the jump from Rookie of the Year to champion as quickly as anybody since, I guess, Dale Earnhardt. Speaking of him, he'll be here later. And when we come back, we'll have the Rookie of the Year candidates for 97 before they go green. When Mike Skinner won the Daytona 500 pole, it focused attention on the 97 battle for the Max Race Cards Rookie of the Year. That's our cue to meet the candidates, beginning with David Green, the 94 Busch Series champ, 96 runner-up, his entire team moving up to the big show, including former Earnhardt crew chief Kurt Shelmerdine. Robbie Gordon, of course, moves over from Indy cars to Winston Cup, brings an impressive and varied resume, and joins Felix Sabates' well-established but revamped organization. And Sterling Marlin's former crew chief Tony Glover comes along in the deal. I'm going to start with Mike Skinner, who, of course, did a couple of years in the truck racing business and comes here with one championship for Childress, driving that Black 3, but now you're with the same team. My question to you, which is more important, win Rookie of the Year or help your teammate, the guy who drives that other Black 3, that guy named Earnhardt, win his 8th championship? Which is the priority for you?
Both.
Well, either or.
Win Rookie of the Year.
Win Rookie of the Year. How much cooperation, effort do you see, and does Earnhardt know that? Does he know that's what you're focused on? How much effort is there going to be placed on winning that 8th title in the cooperation between the two of you?
Well, basically, you know, his main goal is to win that 8th championship. My main goal is to win Rookie of the Year. So anything that we can do to help each other along the way is just going to be a plus for Richard Childress Racing.
And the chemistry's working so far?
It's been great. I tell you, it's been way better than I thought it would be at this point.
Robbie Gordon, you've done a lot of different kinds of racing. You've won down here in the sedans, the buggies, and all the rest of that. I've never been more impressed with you than out in the middle of the desert in Baja, sitting by a cactus, watching that trophy truck perform some amazing feats. Now you come here, and there are critics who say, well, the problem is he drives Winston Cup cars the same way. He doesn't have the patience to know when to go slow. A, is that a fair evaluation? And B, is that something you're working on in this Rookie of the Year race to try to develop that patience?
Well, I'm kind of going in with a little different attitude than trying to win the Rookie of the Year contest. I'm going into it, every race you got 42 guys, race the guy out front. If you do that all year, I think you'll be there for the Rookie of the Year honors.
Bingo. So don't worry about it over the long haul, take it race by race. I like that. David Green, let's talk about your situation. You've got a lot of experience in comparable kinds of cars, a lot of Busch racing, a lot of experience on these kinds of racetracks. Does that make you the favorite going into this thing against these two guys and whoever else may be part of the picture?
I don't think there's anybody out there that can pick a favorite, but you know, and sort of like what Mike and Robbie both said, is my philosophy is a little different yet. My main goal is to go out there and make each one of these Winston Cup races. If I can do that, then you know, plan A is accomplished on trying to obtain that Rookie of the Year status. But you know, I feel real fortunate to be a part or graduate, if you would say, of the Busch Series, because I feel like that's a good training ground.
Mike Skinner, back to you. People forget, I think, that you were here 11 years ago with a car that you built yourself with your buddies in a barn that may or may not have had a dirt floor. There seems to be some question about that. My question is, 11 years it's taken you to get here and really have this legitimate shot at Cup. How did you keep yourself motivated? What keeps a guy focused on the goal and digging for that long a time?
Well, we built a short track car actually 11 years ago and went to Martinsville. It was my very first race. But I think the focus is just really the hunger of racing and wanting to get to the next level. You know, if you're a golfer and you win an amateur tournament, the next goal is to win a professional tournament, you know. And as a racer, Winston Cup is, in my opinion, the top level. It's the pro MBA of racing. And so, you know, you always set goals. And, you know, when you're running late models, your goal is Busch or the trucks or whatever, and then you get in Busch or trucks or whatever, then you want to go to Winston Cup. And we've just struggled a lot and worked real hard and tried to keep a good focus on it. My wife, Beth, has really helped a lot with keeping that focus. Many times I said, I don't know, boy, this is awful tough. And she said, you're a good driver, you can do it, just keep hammering.
There's a natural transition there to Robbie Gordon and that issue of focus, because you grew up with the dream of winning the Indy 500, and that dream is still there to the extent that your team is going to put together an effort to go up there and run this year. Is that going to be a distraction or a disruption to your Winston Cup effort? And how long do you think you'll pursue that? I mean, if you go win it this year, then do you say, that's it, I did it, and go on? What if it takes 5 or 6 years?
I don't know. That's one of the things we talked about when I signed up at Sabco Racing. You know, Felix had an interest of going to the Indy 500 also. We got our first cars yesterday, so the cars are in the shop. The guys are tooling up, getting ready to go to the Speedway. I think the IndyCar technology and the Winston Cup stuff they both can help each other. There's things you do here with the Winston Cup car that we never, now that I've been here at Daytona, that we never thought of doing with an IndyCar. So I think if we could try that, maybe we'll find some gains there. And there's definitely some gains electronic-wise for testing on the IndyCar program that can help us in the Winston Cup.
Who's going to be Rookie of the Year? I guess it's you.
Time will tell.
As Benny Parsons is fond of saying, that's why we run the races, to find out. Now, when we come back, Earnhardt's going to be here. And you know what? He's going to bring his new crew chief with him. You better stay with us. Conventional wisdom says it was this huge crash at Talladega and the resulting broken sternum and collarbone that cost Dale Earnhardt the '96 Winston Cup. But in the aftermath of all that, Earnhardt confided to a fellow driver, what I really need is a new crew chief. Well, now the Intimidator has his man. Longtime Ford ace Larry McReynolds says the chemistry was right the first time he leaned in the window of the famed Black 3. If Larry is correct and these two click the way their respective resumes indicate they could, then we may be looking for a little extra room in the record book for an unprecedented 8th Winston Cup championship. Now look who's here. The two guys everybody's talking about at Daytona this year. I want to get straight to the important stuff, Earnhardt. Can he catch fish? Is he going to be any kind of a hunting partner?
Well, he's going to be a good fisherman once we get to go fishing, but we got racing to do right now.
You're pretty busy.
Pretty busy.
More importantly, what does he bring to this dance? What do you as a driver want out of your crew chief?
Well, I've said it so many times. Larry's brought not just experience and everything he's already learned in racing and to the table, but the confidence level he's brought to me and, you know, knowledge, what he does for the car, what he does for me. I don't question things he says to me.
Well, where's that confidence come from? What is it about that guy?
You know, he brings it when he looks at you, and you look eye to eye with the guy. He's, you know, focused on what you're doing. You're thinking the same way. He takes his notes home, he reads them, he comes back the next morning and tells you what, you know, this is what we need to do. And he's thinking the same way I am. I mean, it's the same kind of thought process. I can go out on the track and run the car and come in and look in his eyes, and he's seeing the same thing I'm feeling. And we're sort of going the same direction before we ever get started.
Where does that come from? I mean, you guys don't go back a long ways together. How can you do that so quickly in a new relationship with a new driver?
Well, I think every situation is a little bit different, but where it comes from with myself is certainly doing it for a long time and trying to pay close attention to all the elements that's there, watching the race car, looking at tire sheets, clocking corner speeds, looking at lap times, just all of those things. But the biggest thing that puts me with the confidence level with him is I know when he's out there even practicing, he's not leaving anything on the table. He's trying to win that practice session, and he's not running the car three-quarter hard as he could and then going to try to get the most out on race day. He's trying to get the most out of it in practice even.
You guys seem a lot different. I mean, you're the Intimidator, and he's Mr. Nice Guy. Is he tough enough to suit you?
Oh, he's tough enough. When it comes to that race car and what he wants you to do with it, it's time to go practice, Dale, or it's time to do this.
He must not have watched some of them races at the end of the year last year.
It comes down to an argument, who's got the final say? Who calls the shot?
If I'm in a race car, I might not come to the pit, so he can call a shot.
Watkins Glen, if you don't pull in, they can't change drivers, right?
But, no, we've not, I don't think we'll have a disagreement. I mean, I might be wrong. Richard and I children have been together so long, and I don't have problems communicating with him. And we're stubborn and hard-headed, both of us, but we still want the same thing. And I think Larry's the same way. We're working for the same goal, and we both know it. The ingredients are there. They've always been there. With Larry there, he's the right guy to coach it, to put it together, to bring the best out in each guy, bring the best out in me, too. And we can go out there and win championships and races for the next 4 years.
He's been intimidating everybody in that garage area for years. I've heard this week more than ever before, look out, because McReynolds has got Earnhardt all pumped up, and he's going to be mighty tough to beat. Have a good year, you guys. Thanks for coming. I'll tell you what, I've been in here long enough. The race for the championship starts tomorrow with the biggest race of the year. I think we ought to get to the garage area and get some final thoughts before they go. We're back. We moved to the garage area where the much talked about Dale and Dale show have been side by side all week. Don't be surprised if they're there at the end of the race tomorrow. That's our cue to narrow the focus. We've talked big picture, the championship. Let's zero in on the Daytona 500. Benny, we're close to the end of the longest week in stock car racing.
Dave, it's about a lot more than a week. This started 3 months ago. As a matter of fact, the Childress team started in early November. They came here and tested their car in early November, getting ready for the 1997 Daytona 500. Every team has spent 3 months getting their best pieces together. They came here 7 or 8 days ago trying to check out and see if their pieces were good enough. They've tested and tested. And every time they get up to speed, someone raises the mark. If the mark was 190 miles per hour, that's where you've got to be. If we're here 7 or 8 more days and they raise the mark to 195 miles per hour, they'd all work to try to get to that level. But tomorrow they've got to stop. The NASCAR officials at 9 o'clock in the morning or something, they're going to say, stop. Put the cars on the line. We've got a race. That's when you've got to stop working. You'll run the race, and then we'll really find out who had the best pieces.
All right, thanks, Benny. It's not 9 o'clock tomorrow yet. That means these guys are still working. And nobody works harder than the new teams in 97 Winston Cup competition. Let's go to Bill Weber.
Well, Derek Cope is one of the new teams here. It's not your team, but you've got new colors and revived Hope. How's it running?
Well, I'm excited. The car's been very productive so far. The Skittles Pontiac looked really good in practice. We made a few mistakes, maybe in the 125s, but well, I think we got her back up to speed. And you know, if the weather was to stay this way or whatever, I think that we'll have a good opportunity to win the race.
To get to victory lane in the 500, you have to put yourself in position to do that. You've done it once before. You'd love to do it again.
Well, I have, and you know, you got to know what your needs are, and it's patience. You got to be able to put yourself in a position to win this race. It's just not going to go out and annihilate these guys. So, you know. We got a lot of people here. You know, all the Skittles folks are here, and to get back to victory lane would be something very, very exciting.
Okay, he's got a good car, good, strong motor support. Derek Cope looking for a win here on Sunday.
All right, thanks, guys. One thing we do in this show is make predictions for the championship. I've been right 6 of the last 11 years. I use a very simple formula. I pick Earnhardt. But this year, I want to reserve the right to perhaps make a change next year. If Earnhardt doesn't get it this year, that'll be 3 years in a row. Hasn't happened since the mid-'80s, at which point I'd like to have the option to start picking Jeff Gordon for the next 11 years. I think he can keep me over 500. We're going to take a break and come back with Richard Childress and more on Before They Go Green.
NASCAR Winston Cup Before They Go Green. Brought to you by Valvoline Durablend, the #1 selling semi-synthetic motor oil.
Welcome back. Before They Go Green, these colors have been to Daytona 500 victory lane 3 times in the last 5 years. This year, new combination. Sterling Marlin hooks up with a legendary crew chief, Tim Brewer. You've been trying longer than Earnhardt to win this race. We know it's tough. This year, you have a car that wasn't very good in qualifying and has gotten a lot better. How did that come about?
Well, we got a lot of good people here. Larry McClure, Runt Pittman, Ronald Larkins, and all these guys. They got good combinations here. But coming down here 25 years, you know, we've run second about 3 times. These guys have won it 3 times out of the last 6 years. So that's pretty impressive. So, you know, basically I'm here just to relate back and forth on information and make the package a little bit better.
Wait. Didn't the room of doom have a little bit to do with you guys' progress this week?
Well, we wore out a set of tires over there rolling it through. I think it was 14 times or some number we went through there Friday. But, you know, there again, it's pretty tough over there, but they keep everybody straight. And it was tough on us the first of the week, but fortunately we've gotten better, and some of these other carburetors have gone bye-bye, so I think we're going to be in pretty good shape.
Real quick, forget Daytona, the championship. Sterling was a contender in 95. Is this team good enough to be a contender again in 97?
We think so. You know, they've got a good, sound race team. We're just going to try to refine it, try to make Sterling a little bit more comfortable inside the car so he can be a little bit more effective on race day.
Okay, man, good luck. That's Tim Brewer. We talk about the championship. Hey, I made my pick. Now I want to hear from the man behind the man. Let's go to Bill Weber.
Well, Dave, car runner Richard Childress has 2 cars in the Daytona 500. Obviously, the first question is, will this be Dale Earnhardt's year?
You know, I've got as much confidence in this year being it as I ever have. You know, we've been right there before. You know, we've won lap 499 several times, and maybe this will be the year to make it 500.
A lot of guys changing teams during the offseason. You got a couple of great guys coming over here. Let's start with Larry McReynolds, obviously. he brings a lot to this package.
Yeah, you know, we're just thrilled to have him on our team. You know, we've raced against him. We've watched him win the Daytona 500 with the Yates cars here. And, you know, we feel he's a great addition, and he's a great leader. The things he brings to the team, leadership, knowledge, I mean, he fits in right now like he's been here for 2 or 3 years.
And you groomed Mike Skinner, and he sits on the pole.
You know, I'm proud. I'm really proud of that team. You know, the whole thing, it was a team effort between the 3 and the 31. Both drivers worked real hard this winter. Both teams worked hard together. Kevin Hamlin and Larry McReynolds have really hit it off well, and they think a lot alike. And, man, I think we got a dynamite package this year.
But only one guy can win, Richard.
That's a great position to be in, you know. I'd love to see Dale win the Daytona 500, and I think deep in Mike Skinner's heart, he wants to see Dale win it. But if it comes down to the last lap, I'm going to sit there and maybe hold my breath, see if I can hold my breath for 47 seconds.
Be a lot of people doing that here Sunday afternoon.
All right, Weber, now before you get away, it's picking time. Your choice for either the race or the championship.
Dave, as far as the 1997 Winston Cup Championship is concerned, I'm already on the record. I picked Rusty Wallace to win it. As for the 500, well, here's how I look at it. If the winner of the 500 invites me to their party, and Wallace finishes, say, inside the top 10, and those guys invite me to their party, I think I'm going to that party. I think it'll be a lot more fun. But you know what? When it's all over with, that could be one and the same party.
Oh, I get it. Okay, Benny Parsons, same question. Pick for the race, pick for the championship.
Dave, I hate this part of the show, trying to pick somebody out of 42 cars that's going to win the Daytona 500. But I'll give you a long shot. This guy, John Andretti, to win the Daytona 500. The championship, who's going to be the 1997 Winston Cup champion? He's probably in the field.
A tough pick, isn't it, Benny? For the 500, the biggest race of the year, and for the championship of what promises to be the biggest Winston Cup season ever. We're out of time. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Benny. I'm Dave Despain. That's it. Before they go green.